Wow.
Yay.
I changed
you are
it
out
up.
of practice.
Totally out of practice. What is up,
I
everyone?
stuck to script.
You did. You were right on it. I completely failed that one. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 307. We have an incredible show today. Our guest is the one and only Ben Gibbard, lead frontman for Cab For Cutie, also his own solo projects, ultra runner extraordinaire, trail runner. We're going to talk to him all about a recent adventure that he created and concocted in his own mind. I can't wait to find out more about it. Basically, the Seattle music landmark 46 miler. We'll talk more about that. But basically, he hit up some of the best, most historic locations in Seattle that mean a lot to rock and roll and connected all of them with mileage, a lot of mileage. We're going to talk to him about that and all of the live streams he's been doing for amazing charities and stuff like that. We're going to catch up with Ben Gibbard today on Ginger Runner Live. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Sit back, relax. Here we go.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! Did I get it right?
I don't know. We'll see what the chat room has to say.
We'll see what the chat room has to say. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 307.
I can't believe it's 307. But also, it seems like episode 300 was 100 years ago.
We hit this milestone, 300 episodes, 7 episodes ago, obviously, but it felt like it took forever to get there. And it's been years that we've been doing the show every single Monday. So here we are at episode 307, and we get to welcome back tonight a fantastic guest. It's been a long time since he's been on the show, years probably. I remember the first time, I would say that our friendship kind of blossomed as a result of his first appearance on the show. I've always been a fan of this guy. When I found out that he was an ultra runner, we got him on an early episode of Ginger Runner Live, and I'm just sitting there like fangirling out the whole time. Just, oh my God, he's on our show. Like, what do I say? And don't embarrass yourself.
What you're doing right now.
Basically. And over the years, as many ultra runners can attest, this guy is just one of the nicest dudes out there. Very humble, very kind. And if you find him out on a trail, he'll stop and say hello. And if you find yourself next to him in a race, he'll chat with you for miles on end.
By you.
But then he'll drop you because he's quite the athlete. But
Megan Brazine in the chat room says, I just listened to the podcast with Ben on my run today, episode 131, I think. So that was a long time ago.
131. More than half the episodes ago. Is that math right? Is that how I would phrase that sentence?
Yeah.
Ben Gibbard, lead or the frontman for Cab For Cutie, is joining us on today's show. He is a fantastic ultra runner and road runner, really. He's been doing a lot during this COVID-19 crisis, a lot for others. And he's been using his platform for good, doing live streams daily for a couple of weeks. And now every single week he's doing covers and just performing and giving back. And it's an amazing cause. And what he's doing is really quite inspiring. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about that. In addition to his unique and custom created Seattle music landmark 46 miler is kind of what he's calling it. I kind of wanted to call it like the ghosts of rock and roll or something like that, because some of the locations he's hitting are historic in this region. But he connected them all with this run, about 46 miles. We'll talk to him about what that experience was like and why he chose the destinations he chose. Before we introduce our guest, of course, it is not just myself, joined by the wonderful and beautiful Kim. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining us live, we are, in fact, live. Ben will be joining us in just a second. So if you have questions for Ben, please pop them in the chat room. We already have some rolling in.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to get lots of questions tonight, which is totally good. Kim will pull those aside and we'll ask as many as we can of our guest tonight.
Yeah.
And again, before we introduce, we do have some individuals we'd like to thank at the top of the show. This is Ginger Runner Live. We get to go live every single Monday. We've been doing this now for over 6 years, nearly 7 years. And it is because of our Patreon supporters that we are able to do this full time. So big shout out to our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/thegingerrunner. We call them our GR crew because they really are the community that helps us do this full time. We do live shows every week, reviews, films, all sorts of content is right here on this YouTube channel that you're watching. And it's because of our Patreon supporters. 2 individuals at the top tier we like to shout out at the beginning of every show. Brian Sands, longtime supporter, incredibly inspiring individual, has lost over 100 pounds in his running journey. He ran his first marathon, I believe, at 48 or 50. He started running when he was 48, ran his first marathon when he was 50.
And first 50K.
And he's currently training for distances much beyond that. He's rocking 40, 50, 60 miles a week now. Just totally inspiring dude. And Chris Lee out of Hong Kong. Chris Lee has an organization called Trailblazer that showcases the trails in that region. Also brick and mortar store. He's a really wonderful ambassador for trail running, ultra running in that region. So big shout out to Chris, his family, and everyone over there. They're really wonderful humans we get to chat with every single month. Without further ado, I am so honored to welcome him back to the show. He's just one of the kindest people on the planet, and he's doing a lot of really great things right now. So this is a perfect chance to catch up with the one and only Ben Gibbard.
Yay!
Yay! Perfect.
There you go.
Perfect.
If we can just do that for the whole show, that'd be great.
Yeah, just the perfectly timed metronome.
Yeah.
Let me record this. First, how you doing, man? How you been doing with all of this? Because I know we don't live far from each other, but we haven't been able to see each other with all of this stuff going on. How have you been holding up?
Well, I did see you about a month ago when I ran to your house.
I've already blacked it out. I've already completely.
Okay, yeah. Well, I one of the other runs that I kind of put myself on was like, I'm going to run to my friends' houses and just stand outside and wave at them and then run to another friend's house. Your house is on my route. I'm okay. I've moved through all the stages of grief, and I'm just completely at acceptance right now. And I think my wife Rachel and I we're just gonna hunker down and kind of like I don't think waiting this thing out is the right way of putting it, but just try to treat it as like, all right, this is, I would much rather. I'm fine with us having to cancel shows. I'm fine with us having to kind of cut down on the kind of travel we want to do, and we are in a very fortunate position. We're in a much better situation than most people, so we're just trying to be of use and kind of be of service to people who need the support more than others at this point.
I was super curious in regards to Death Cab, your concerts, your solo shows, everything that you've had scheduled throughout the year. When you are at the level that you are at, you plan these things well in advance, and you have a whole team of people that put these events on and ticket sales. And I can't imagine the logistics. Having had to put a race on hold since we had a race that was supposed to take place a couple weeks ago, just the logistics around that are really challenging. How have you has it been difficult to deal with taking a whole tour and a schedule like that and put things on hold? Have fans been okay with it, understanding? What's that been like?
Everybody's been, I think early on in this crisis, when, we had to reschedule some stuff, there was a little bit of grumbling. But I think as this continues to go on and people have their own kind of come to Jesus moments about the severity of the situation and how deadly serious it is. Just last week, we canceled everything that we had postponed into the fall. And I canceled some solo dates that I had moved from April into October. And I don't think I read one comment that was anything other than, yeah, we totally get it. Of course. Yeah. I think everybody understands now that this is very serious, and we don't want to go out, we don't want to go out and do, some of the things that have been proposed is like, this might work. It might work if we make a venue quarter capacity and spread everybody out by 6 feet, and it might work if we do this. It might work if we have a drive-up concert. I would much rather just postpone all the live stuff we're doing to a date, hopefully not too far in the foreseeable future. Certainly not until probably around this time next year at the very earliest, but probably later. And then be able to go out and do what we do and in the way we want to do it. And if we have to wait longer than we think we have to wait now, that's fine. But I think the most important thing is people's safety and people's health. And I think as athletes, I think we'd all agree, anybody who's watching this, like, you do not want this.
Right.
You do not want this. And, and I just don't think it's worth the gamble at all. So I think, so right now we're just, I'm writing a lot. trying to write a new Death Cab record and writing for some other projects I'm working on. And I think just in the last month, I've started to really settle into like, all right, it's going to be like this for a while. And Rachel and I have really, really found some peace and kind of perspective, and just kind of that this is going to be a while, and that's fine.
I love that you sort of brought up the point that we might be able to do this way, or we might be able to make it work if we did this. It's like the exact same conversation we've been having with our event, Tiger Claw, the race, and just trying to figure out is like, if you have to ask yourself, well, we might be able to make it work if we did this. If that is part of the equation, is it worth doing that?
Right. We're seeing that getting echoed through many RDs just trying to figure out when and if we can do our events. And there's this laundry list of like, well, maybe if we do it this way, maybe we can make it work and the race will look like this.
Yeah. Here's 40 things we're going to do. And it's like, is it worth making something work just because you have? I don't know. It's been interesting. So I know you have races that you were signed up for and scheduled. You had a big year planned. And how has that sort of trickled down to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I was signed up for Yakima Skyline, that got canceled. Signed up for Needles 50K. I'm kind of not. That's most likely not going to happen. And as you know, they're still not sure if Cascade Crest is going to be canceled or not. We just got an email. I'm signed up for that. And we got an email last week saying, "Hey, we'll know by this date." And I in my running around town, I'd run into Adam Huey, who's one of the kind of in a co-race director status right now. And I've run into him a couple times, and I've been trying to not pry about Cascade because there are things that are so much more important.
Right.
But last time we ran into each other, we were talking, and we were like, yeah, I guess you could. I mean, this is me talking, not him. I guess you could send people out in waves, and I guess you could change the aid stations up so that people are not taking handfuls of food, and I guess you could do this. But then when I got this email and I was talking to Rachel, I was like, yeah, so it looks like Cascade might happen. We're not quite sure yet. And she was like, how are Sarah and I going to crew that race? How are two people who don't live in the same house going to travel around in the mountains to help you run 100 miles? And I was like, I do not know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, I'm certainly hoping that there might be a way to make it happen, but I won't be. I'm kind of setting myself to just do it with the acceptance that it would be very. I would be surprised if this event or any event occurs this year, and just being fine with it if it goes away.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see that mindset sort of begin to permeate, because early on it was, we were very fortunate. Our runners were very understanding when we had to postpone, and
we made the call very early.
We made the call very early, and we were really nervous that people would be like, "What are you doing? That's crazy." And I know you made calls with your performances, live performances and stuff, really early as well. And it seems like people are very understanding now, which is great. I think it's important to realize just how crazy this stuff is. And yeah, as athletes, you don't want it. You don't want anything to do with it.
Just like as a human in general.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, as a human in general, you don't want this. As an athlete, you really don't want
don't want this. We have lots to talk about today. So, of course, I want to dig into you doing a bunch of live performances from your home, from the room that you were literally sitting in, which is pretty neat, in addition to your big, long run. But we do have live questions, and I don't want to miss some of those. So, Kim, what do we got?
Yeah, sure. Question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Nathaniel says, Ben, COVID-19 has been described as forever changing the way people gather moving forward. How do you see it changing live music?
Well, there won't be, I don't believe, this is just me talking, I don't believe that there will be any live music the way we've historically known it until there's a vaccine or some kind of advanced treatment. And there have been, as I said earlier, there's been some whisperings about, well, you could maybe do a concert at Dodger Stadium if people drove in and then stayed in their cars and there was a stage.
Right.
And but I wouldn't want to go to that. I would. I mean, as a fan, I wouldn't want to go to that. And I think that we're starting to see in some states that are starting to try to open up, which I vehemently against, but we're starting to try to open up. I understand the economic ramifications of this and this virus in people's lives. It's not lost on me. However, you can open up a state. You can try to put on a concert that is socially distanced, but you still need people to come to the event. If you own a restaurant, you need people to feel comfortable enough to go in and sit in a restaurant and have a meal.
Yeah.
And I fear that the psychological factors at play and how people make these decisions is going to have a very long sunset. This is going to be something that we are going to be dealing with, not maybe, for months, years to come. So I would have to think that at some point we'll get back to some semblance of normality, but I don't think it's going to happen until we have a vaccine or some kind of advanced treatments for this thing.
I know that trails here in the Pacific Northwest have began to reopen. It wasn't really a soft reopening. It was just like hey, here's the date, and most of the trails will be open. You've had a chance to go out there, and have you seen an uptick in trail usage and people out there recreating as normal, or has it felt quieter? Or what's been your experience just getting out to the trails?
Well, I've gone out a couple times in the last week, 3 times I think, since the trails were opened up, and I'm intentionally going out on off hours, i.e., being on trail at 6 a.m. And also, I didn't go out on Saturday or Sunday. I'm avoiding the weekends. Saying you're avoiding something like the plague is maybe not the best way of putting it right now, but that's. But I've historically always avoided going out on the trails, at least on the weekends when it's nice, because, once you get, as you guys know, once you get up off the main hiking trails and onto the trails that really only runners or, kind of hardcore hikers get on, you don't see many people even on a weekend. But I've seen a couple people out. I was out on Tiger earlier this morning, and I think I always get a kick out of when I think I was out there early, and I'm kind of climbing up section line at 6:30, and I see somebody coming down section line at 6:30. I'm like, whoa, this dude was out here like way early.
Way early.
So I haven't seen in my 3 trips out there, I haven't seen that many people, but I think it's more of a function of when I've been going out and the days I've been going out rather than usage.
Got it. I want to talk a little bit about some of these live streams that you've been doing, because you have been giving back. Every live stream was essentially benefiting a different charity, whether local or beyond that. But you've really stepped up and have done an amazing job using your platform for good. Have you seen how's the response been? Because being able to get Ben Gibbard in people's living rooms performing from his living room essentially has been special and really unique. And I'm curious if you've gotten a lot of response of like, this is amazing, or do this more, do this forever. Like, how has it sort of changed your performance and creative process?
Well, what I've been the most impressed with and touched by is not only people's altruism and willingness to give right now, but I've also been really impressed with the community that has sprung up around these now weekly live shows. Mm-hmm. In that it's cool to, I'll open up the platform, to kind of make sure everything's working before I go live. And I see the chat going in the corner, and I see people asking each other, like, how's your week going? Hey, Steve, how was that thing that happened? How did that thing go? Or people just talking to each other. And it's cool to have seen this little community kind of. I'm sure you guys are completely know what I'm talking about with your show.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just the way people have kind of coalesced around me sitting in here with an acoustic guitar playing songs for 45 or 50 minutes. So that's been really cool. And I think I've said this a couple times, but I think that early on, especially in this crisis, I felt it was necessary to try to play upon people's altruism and feeling and their desire and ability to give back, because I think in the early days of this crisis, we have no idea how long this is going to go.
Right.
And it seemed to me that people were going to be more willing to give earlier on in this thing than they would later on when people start getting financially crunched. So, a $5 donation here, a $10 donation here is probably easier on people's pocketbooks in April than it might be in December. So I feel that it was important to mobilize early in this work rather than to kind of put it off until later.
It's been amazing. Like, as someone who's very recognizing of what you your platform and what you've accomplished in your career and your life, and just the number of people that you have who are fans and followers and love your music and all that. It's really amazing to see what you have been able to do with your platform, because to be totally frank, like doing live performances through the computer, especially from home, using tech yourself, not having an engineer or anything like that, it's intimidating. And I can imagine for someone who doesn't normally live stream from their home, that was probably a hurdle that you're like, okay, I'm realizing that I'm opening up my home to everyone. There's probably a bit of sort of what am I saying? Like rawness, I guess, in that. So let me just say thank you, because I've been a huge fan, obviously, of you both as a performer and as a friend for a long time. But it was really cool to see you use your platform for good. And I can only imagine the good that you were able to do for some of these smaller charities, local charities, and national charities too. Have you heard from any of them? Did you touch base with some of these charities beforehand, or was it like, today I'm going to surprise blank charity with the announcement and then let's see what happens?
No, I've had a list of organizations that I've been a supporter of for some time, and as the shows kept going, I was kind of running out of familiar places, so I started soliciting some friends. My sister is a social worker and is really kind of tied into a lot of nonprofits in town, and it's just been kind of like feeling it out and finding places that I felt were doing work that I want to support. And we haven't reached out beforehand and been like, Ben's going to do a little something nice for you this week. It's not that. It's just like, yeah, whatever, man. This is a fairly easy thing for me to do.
Yeah. And
we as a band have been very successful in our 22-year career, and it's because of like these records behind me, these gold and platinum records behind me, that it's made this period, it's put me in a position where this is an easier thing for me to weather than a lot of other people. So it just would seem, I just felt like I had a moral obligation to do this thing that's like fairly easy to do. Like, I'm just in my house, right? I have a computer, I have a microphone, and it's not difficult to do it. And I'm not saying that to chastise anybody who's not. I think for me, it's been actually really impressive to see how many people have kind of, throughout the entertainment industry are doing similar things. And they're not, they're not doing it because I did it or something like that. They're just doing it because people had this, there's this hive mind around this where you just go like, yeah, I could probably do this, and people want to tune in to see that. And, everybody's at home. So, and there is no other option. I would, of course, way rather be in front of a live audience. I mean, when I did the first couple of shows, we were texting, and I had told you, this has given me a real perspective on how good you both are at what you do, because it's really weird to be in front of a little green light and finish a song and have there just be, you're just in your house, I have been programmed for my entire life as a performer that you play a song and people clap for it. Sure. And that's how they know that you did a good job. And then, so it was, and also it was the first time I've experienced like a live chat going, people. And, initially I think I was kind of a little bit scared of it because I didn't know what kind of community would be tuning in to watch this. And over time, from the very beginning, but certainly over time, as I said, it's kind of coalesced in this kind of cool group of people. And the numbers are fairly consistent every week of people who are tuning in to watch it. And it just seems like it's become like the way somebody would watch Cheers. They're just tuning in. Like, oh, it's 4 p.m. I got to tune in and watch. I got to watch my stories.
I love. Well, yes, you are that. Oh my God, Ben Gibbard is our stories every Thursday. We got to see what happens.
And I'm just like standing here just clapping. You can't hear me, but I'm doing it.
If only we could pipe in our mic from our clapping, because it gets raucous. But I also, knowing that your footprint on social media has gotten smaller over the years, and I'm so jealous of that. I'm so jealous of your ability to sort of, I'm done with this, and I'm done with this, and you're able to sort of maintain your privacy. I know that level of just interacting with the live chat room or having that up on your screen can probably pose a bit of like do I really want to do this? The fact you've been doing it and have been consistent week after week, it's just like, it really is giving so much just to people who are maybe sitting at home or haven't been able to get out of the house or have kids that have been stressing them out all day, every day for weeks, to be able to sit down and listen to Ben play some Beatles covers or old albums. It's great. So thank you for doing it.
Well, I also just, final point on it. It's also really important to note that this is something that this is giving me structure too. This is giving me purpose as well. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't something I enjoyed, straight up.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think it's as much out of a need, like a narcissistic need to be in, an extroverted need to be in front of an audience as much as it is. This is, one of this along with like a training schedule for races that are probably not going to happen are two of the sole points of structure that I now have in my life. I'm working on music and I'm, we're all doing a lot of the same things, cleaning our houses and making dinner and, and talking to people over Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. But this is every 4 p.m., like on Thursdays, I have to do this thing. And it's, when I start spinning out about where is this all going? What are we doing? Is this the end of the world? As we all have, I'm sure. It's been really valuable to me to have this grounding purpose one day a week that I have to do. So it's nice of you to say that. It's obviously, but I can't go without telling everybody that this is also providing me some solace and some structure and something that I need personally as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Ginger Runner Live wouldn't be going for nearly 7 years if it wasn't the same. If it didn't provide us with some sort of like, when you work for yourself, or you work from home, or you're creative, or you're an artist, there's a certain level of having that freedom to create your own schedule from a day-to-day basis is part of the creative process. It's, you might find inspiration at 10 p.m. You might find it at 5 in the morning when you wake up. Having this just live show every Monday, and especially through all of this right now, has just been therapeutic, and selfishly, it's been what's gotten us through it. Like knowing,
we started daily live streaming near the beginning of this, and as much as it was like, oh, let's try and bring the community together, it was also, we have that on our schedule every day.
Yeah.
And
It's so I can relate to probably what you're feeling with that Thursday at 4. It's our Monday at 4. It's like that. I can't wait. I'm planning it. I'm figuring out. We're getting Ben as a guest. We're going to sit down. I'm going to, look up his history and look at his Instagram and basically find out as much information about him as possible. I do want to talk about. I'm trying to calm down. I do want to talk about this amazing 46-mile run, because this was done a week ago. Is that right? It was last
it's like
Friday?
2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Two weeks ago. So it wasn't done before all of this. He has already done it. It took place in the midst of this crisis, but also that just proves that Ben's been training and he's been finding ways to stay healthy. So we're going to talk all about that here in just a second. But as I mentioned earlier, Kim's been pulling tons of great live questions.
Yeah, good questions.
Lots of great questions coming in.
Look at this, guys. Look what's on my little
thing.
I just realized that.
I'm not going to... No one needs to know what that sticker is. We're going to leave it secret.
I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat room that know exactly what that sticker is. Maybe. My mom probably does.
Yeah, that's it.
This is a combination of questions from both Sean and Jonathan. Sean says, as so much is locked down, do you find yourself having more time to be creative with your music? And Jonathan goes on to say, have you written any new songs specifically influenced by the distance time at home?
Relevant question.
Yeah, I think early on in the lockdown, I and many people I've talked to, writers, musicians, a couple poet friends of mine, we would kind of reach out to each other and be like, "You getting anything done?" And be like, "Nothing." And you're like, "You getting anything done?" "Nothing." And I think that early on in this lockdown, there was this strange pressure to produce, because you're sitting there and you're like, hey man, I got nothing else to do. I should write, the Great American Novel, or I'm going to write, Sgt. Pepper. I'm just going to do it because I got all this time and it's definitely going to happen. And for me, so much of what inspires me how I being out in the world and seeing people interact and being around people, which is a much more difficult thing to do now. It's not possible really. So I think initially I was kind of down on myself that I wasn't getting more done, but I think in the last like 3 weeks or so, I think it honestly like correlates with the acceptance of this is what life is now for the foreseeable future. Is like I've found some grace in how I view my own creative output and just being like, look, if I get something done today, I get something done. If I don't, it does not matter. There is nobody knocking down my door needing a new album. We're not late. There's no timeline we're on right now. We're hoping to start making a record early next year, but we don't even know if we can get in the studio with a producer. We don't know anything. And I did write a song called Life in Quarantine, and I wrote that in the first week or so of this, which is of course directly inspired by everything. But I think everything I've been writing recently has been, distance has been, emotional and physical distance has always been a theme that I've kind of a well that I've kind of drawn from. So I'm trying to not avoid it, but not overuse it, not go to it too much. But yeah, it's hard. And I find this to be as a writer, a very nostalgic time because we're having so few new experiences, and yet we're also able to look back on experiences throughout our lives and pull from them. So that's actually opened up some interesting creative portals for me, in that I'm able to kind of look back on things that have occurred in my life and the lives of those around me, and try to pull from those.
Do you think that consciously about the creative process, in that if you find a link to inspiration, to nostalgia or something in your life, that do you find yourself leaning into that as creative inspiration, or is it more organic, and does it find you? And I guess the creative process, and not necessarily how it works for you, how does that link up? Is it something that is immediate, you're into it, or do you have to find it?
Oh, it's like fishing. You have to kind of put your line in the water and wait. But I do find that writing is very much like a muscle. When you don't use it, or you use it infrequently, or you expect to just walk in the gym and just deadlift a bunch of weight, it's going to end badly, and you're going to end up being disappointed, or in the case of lifting weights, most likely injured. So it's like so for me, it's kind of like, if to kind of pull it into our world, it's like training for an ultra. You don't just go like, I'm going to run 50 miles tomorrow. It's like, well, no, you have to, okay, I want to run 50 miles in months. So what do I need to be doing now? And as a writer, it's just kind of like, you're just chipping away. You're just kind of, you're cataloging ideas. You're writing little things down. I keep notes in my phone with little lyric ideas. I have this notebook full of things that most likely are worthless, but every once in a while there'll be something in there. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realize that. Well, that's a good line. I'll start from there. So I find as a writer, it's always important to see an idea through to some kind of logical end, even if you don't see the value in it in that moment. Does that make sense? So if I write a song and I'm like, that thing's a real piece of garbage, there might be a line in there or a guitar part or something that I'll go back to later. And even if I don't use it, it might point me in a creative direction that I can make something better.
A lot of people may not know that A Decade On, which is a movie I made about Brian Morrison, was originally titled A Decade On, the Ben Gibbard Story. But there just happened to be so much good Brian Morrison footage that I was like, well, let's tell the story of Brian.
Yeah, we should.
Ben can make an appearance.
Yeah.
You are so disappointed in this. I could sound.
I was like, okay, what's this joke? Where is it? Oh.
It was a movie about me pacing a guy at Western States, and then we realized, oh my God, wait a second, what's this guy's story?
The guy who's actually being
the guy who's running?
Kind of amazing.
Yeah, we should
Ben's
focus on that guy.
at this point. I just loved, while I was saying that, Kim was looking at me like,
you can see the disappointment in my face.
Good job. You're telling a story. This is
That's
good.
what I'm here for.
That's what I appreciate that.
To provide you with disappointment.
Basically, pull me right on back down to earth. All right, so I want to obviously start talking about this amazing route that you created. I remember you talking about this just kind of on a surface level a long time ago. So this has been an idea that's been brewing in your brain for a while, yeah?
Yeah, so I I don't really enjoy road running. Once I discovered trail running on accident, I was like, holy shit, this is the thing. This is what I want to do. And so the idea of running a road marathon or doing any kind of long efforts on the road just did not sound fun to me. However, when I was just sitting around one day, I just started thinking about, there are a lot of places in Seattle that have historical significance to me as a music fan, um, and I just thought, like, I wonder if you could probably just make a run out of all those. And I started thinking about a race that I have yet to do, but I've always wanted to, which is the Fear and Loathing 50 miler in San Francisco.
Right. You told me a little bit about that. Can
Yeah,
you
it's like
debrief us?
so my understanding of it, and people in the chat may have run it. I ran with a guy at Headlands 100 that had a patch on his back from the race. But my understanding of it is it's a very old school ultra where, like, they don't even have GPS. There's no GPX file. You just get a piece of paper with a turn-by-turn of directions. It sounds like it'd be kind of infuriating as a teched out runner. But it's a 50-mile just road run that runs around San Francisco. There's no aid stations. It's not sanctioned as far as I can tell. It's just a thing people do on one. They all park up at Twin Peaks and do it. And I started thinking, like, well, I'd like to make something like that for Seattle, but tie it to these landmarks. And maybe, I was thinking way further down the field, like, well, maybe we could do it as kind of a fat ass, like an unsanctioned kind of thing. And maybe we could raise money for music cares or something. Maybe it could be like an event. And so I kind of made the route and I put it away, and I started asking people questions about how one would put on an event like that. And the more questions I asked, the more I kind of got like, yeah, that's might not be a good idea if somebody's like, why are all these people running? Even Biblis, like, why are all these people running through the streets?
Yeah.
Is this some kind of event? It just sounded like, it's still something I'm interested in doing in the future, maybe, but I just didn't have the time or the inclination to put it all together in any kind of official capacity. And I also thought, well, I should run this myself before I just decide to, like, get a bunch of people to do it, right? So, but why would I want to do that? Why would I want to go run almost I was trying to make it 50 miles exactly, but it was kind of difficult. I might be able to do it if I reroute some stuff, but I was like, well, okay, why would I ever do this on my own? Why would I burn an effort like that on the road? It's like the way I approach my running is I try not to do stupid shit. I try not to go out and do some massive effort on 30 miles a week or something like that and then get injured. Like, I want to be doing this for a long time. I don't want to just go out and just, like, do Steven Snoqualmie a month after running 100 miles or something like that. My body, I don't want to test my body like that. I'd rather just be conservative. So I just kind of put it away and never thought about it. But then when the quarantine hit and trails and parks were closed in Seattle and out in Issaquah and state parks everywhere and national parks, I kind of started thinking, like, maybe this is the time to do something like this, because we are only able to run on the roads. And I was even avoiding smaller parks, like places I like to run, like Frink or the Arboretum or Interlochen or Volunteer Park or Discovery. I didn't want to have anything to do with those places because I just figured they'd be overrun, there'd be a lot of people. So I just started running longer road runs and, like, kind of training for this run, and just decided just to do it.
It is an amazing feat because, again, Ben has been training a lot. He since Headlands 100. For those who didn't know, I think we talked a little bit about him during our Headlands recap show. But Ben placed second at the Headland. We're gonna just call it second. Okay, we're just gonna call it first. Ben placed third. Sorry, he was moving so fast. I was like, he's definitely getting second. Third, I guess. But
I guess you can still tell a story.
I guess the story's still the same. Ben did incredibly well at Headlands. It was amazing to see that. And he's been fit and training ever since under the tutelage of Gary Robbins, who we've mentioned on the show many, many times as coach. But your body has been ready for, you've been training and stuff for these bigger efforts this year. and transitioning to roads. Was that a difficult transition in these last few months? Did your body take to it better than you anticipated? Or, I mean, you're mentioning running everything in not parks. That's a lot of road. How'd your body
Yeah, it was pretty
handle
much
that?
all road. Yeah, I mean, I got some. I got a pair of thick boys, got some Hokas, strapped those bad boys on, and I think the thing that was the most. I mean, it makes sense, but I was the efforts. You know, when you're going out and doing a, 2 or 3 hour run somewhere, kind of in Issaquah, like in the you're getting a couple 2,000-3,000 maybe 4,000 feet of gain on a run and doing a lot of hiking. Your heart rate's kind of spiked more times than not, power hiking or whatever. So for me, I found that coming from doing all that stuff, it was easy to get into like a really kind of like easy pace on what is on mostly flats. Even in Seattle, it's mostly flats. But also just that being on concrete and pavement it would just beat me up the way a rigorous trail run would. So
Yeah.
the run itself felt a lot easier, but the recovery afterwards felt as if I'd been on Tiger and did like a 4-hour run with 5,000 or 6,000 feet of gain. So
Right.
it was the same kind of like, oh, my quads are blasted, But it was interesting how my body adapted over the course of training only on the roads. And I found it to be really fun to go and explore parts of the city that I never would explore on foot. Like I went on a training run where I ran to my sister's house in Burien, and she had set out like a little pitcher of water on her front porch, and I like waved at her and we talked for 5 minutes from the yard, and I was like, well, got to run back. So it was fun to kind of see these kind of corners of the city that I never would see on foot. And that of course was definitely the case with this longer run.
You ran to Burien?
It's not that far. It's only like 11 miles.
You ran to Burien?
Yeah, but think about it. It's like,
it's really not that far.
The city, you think of Seattle as being this big city, but
Yeah.
things are not that far away. I mean,
Right.
If you're going to go and do like a long training run out on the trails, you're going to cover these massive, really massive kind of tracts of land. But when you're on the road and you can see a skyscraper like not that far, you're like, wow, that looks really far away. And then you look down your watch, like 3 miles.
Yeah, 3 miles away.
It doesn't. It's not as far as you think it is. So
yeah,
and it takes less time. It takes less time because you're not navigating big climbs and stuff.
Right. The climbs are maybe a couple 100 feet max.
Right.
I want to know more about the locations that you chose for this. Obviously, that's kind of the big, important, fun thing about this 46-mile Seattle music landmark is what are the landmarks? Are they specifically important to you as a musician and your growth through the Seattle rock and roll scene? Are they historic for bigger reasons than that? What are some of the landmarks and tell us why they were important?
Yeah, so I think they're going to be in I don't know, I had them down here. There's like 17 or 18 of them, and most of them all have significance to kind of what would be the golden age of Seattle music as a cultural force. So like 90s era stuff. So I'll try not to kind of get in the weeds with this, but I started at the Singles building, which is a building on 19th and Thomas, which was the setting for the movie Singles, which maybe some people have seen. And I ran down into Madison Valley past Kurt Cobain's old house, which is tragically the house where he took his life. And as I made my way along Lake Washington, I popped up along Jackson and hit a couple places that were interesting to me. One was the location of the old Black Elks Club on 6th and Jackson, where Quincy Jones and Ray Charles had first met each other. The location of an old club called Guerrilla Gardens, where Guns N' Roses played their first show in Seattle in the mid 80s, I think. And I'm buddies with Duff from Guns N' Roses, so he got a kick out of that. And the story behind how they got to that show is pretty incredible. It's well documented if anybody's interested. I ran past the Central Saloon where Nirvana played their first shows in Seattle. The location of the old location of Sub Pop Records in the Terminal Sales Building, down to the Edgewater Inn, where the Beatles stayed, but also is the location of the infamous Led Zeppelin Red Snapper story, which is really something. It's kind of X-rated, not something probably go into on the show. But if you just put in Led Zeppelin Red Snapper into Google, you'll get the whole story.
This show gets X-rated, so let's talk about this. I always knew the Beatles story of them fishing out the window, right?
Yeah, because you used to be able to do that. I think you probably still can. But the Led Zeppelin story involves a fish, and it's not. We'll
save it for another episode.
I ran along Elliott past Barsook Records, which is a location of the record label we used to be on, over to Discovery Park, where the Hunger Strike video by Temple of the Dog was shot, which is a great video. And then past the location of Reciprocal Recording, now the Hall of Justice, which is a studio owned by my old bandmate Chris Walla, but it was where Nirvana recorded Bleach for $600 back in the day. I ran through the U District past Lane Staley from Alice in Chains' last residence, where tragically he passed away, and then up. This was the real long leg. This was like a 8 or 9 mile leg straight north up to London Bridge Studios, which is up off of I don't have the address, but it's
like
way
near
up
Lake
there.
City, like up near Lake Forest Park, right?
Oh, it's way past Lake Forest Park. Like it's.
Oh wow.
Well, no, I guess it is sort of Lake Forest Park. It's on Ballinger Way, so it's way up there. So that stretch of 8 or 9 miles of just rolling, going basically up Roosevelt and then just through areas of Seattle I had never seen before, or areas that I'm not even sure I don't think they are Seattle. They might even be like unincorporated King County. Just
wow.
It was wild to see how Seattle went from being this kind of cosmopolitan tech city to just like it got kind of country in a way that I'd never seen it before, which is interesting. And then I kicked over to Lake Washington and took the Burt Gilman. You
took that southbound?
Yeah, I took southbound Burt Gilman back down into Magnuson Park, where a Soundgarden statue is, and from there I got back on the Burt Gilman, ran up and over Capitol Hill into Volunteer Park, where I saw the Black Sun statue, which is where Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun was inspired by, and to an extent our song Black Sun. And then I finished it off by hitting the Dick's on Broadway, which is famously a location in Sir Mix-a-Lot's Posse on Broadway, where he raps, "Dick's is the place where the cool hang out." And I just did that. I did do that. And then I took a photo. I stopped by the Hendrix statue and then ran back up and ended it at the back at the Singles building. So, and it'd be about 46 miles. I thought afterwards there were a lot of locations, especially downtown, that I could have kind of made stops and took photos.
Added some stuff.
And there are certainly ways to make it even. These are just the locations that made around a 50-mile loop. I'm sure there'd be a way to make it even bigger or to add other things. But it just was kind of so I took photos along the way. And I think when I was going to post a bunch of stuff from it, and I was kind of hemming and hawing a bit because I was like, I don't know if people are going to see this and I'm going to look like some kind of quarantine breaker or something,
Sure.
even though here in Washington State, I am following all the rules. We are allowed out for exercise. There's no limit to the exercise, which they failed to put a limit on it, as they did in Paris and some other places where you're only allowed out, 2K outside.
Like an hour, or a limit
exactly,
distance. Yeah.
But there's no limits on it. So I was like, okay, well, I can getting away with this. But I was also feeling like, if people are like really quarantined, are they going to be bummed on this? But so I kind of made it into a thing where I posted photos and stories, and then I would add a link so people could click on the link and go like the Singles building, like, oh, there's the trailer for Singles, or like, oh, the Edgewater Inn. Oh, there's the Red Snapper story. So I was and I was kind of expecting people to be maybe a little bit bummed on me for doing it, I guess. Maybe I was just being overly sensitive about people's, how people were feeling in quarantine, about seeing people out doing stuff. Yeah. But the overwhelming response, in fact, the entire response, at least that I got, was positive and people were kind of stoked to see some of these places that maybe they didn't realize were there. If people who lived in the area who didn't know some of these places, or people who were fans of some of these bands and this music, and were stoked to see like, oh man, that's where Pearl Jam recorded 10, or whoa, that's where Soundgarden got their name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was, like as I said, I followed all the protocols as put out by the state and the city, and just had as good of a time as you can have running that much road mileage.
I like, as someone who, I'm not going to sit here and say that my music history is up to snuff. It's just not. Like, especially growing up in Seattle, you hear about the statues and the tributes and the Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Death Cab and all the history that's here with that. But you don't really get the details. Like, I just kind of had a rough knowledge based off of your route. I was like, oh yeah, I know of some of these places. I don't know where they are. But the one thing, like, for me was Quincy Jones and Ray Charles, like, when they first met, that was in Seattle. And like, some of these really important kind of iconic moments that I just would never have had a clue about had it not been for this run are fascinating to me. There's a quick question, and this dovetails nicely with what I wanted to ask, is if there are things that are special to you that you wish you had added, or locations that maybe would put you well off of a 50-mile route or that sort of thing, that you wish you could have added. Were there other historical iconic moments?
There were a couple locations in North Seattle, like the location of like Robert Lang Studios, where a number of like iconic records were recorded. There was a location down in Georgetown where the poet Stephen Jesse Bernstein had lived for some time, who I'm a big fan of his. He made a record for Sub Pop in the early 90s that was really influential on me. He took his own life early, right after he made that record. So by the time I was aware of him, he was already gone. But yeah, there are certainly a lot of places where when I think there are many opportunities for people to say like, why didn't you add this? Why didn't you add that?
Right.
And so I think if I'm going to do this again, or put it together in some kind of route that people can follow, and I think I might want to add a couple more things in, but I wanted to keep it to the places that people might say like, oh yeah, that guy, or oh, that band, really. But yeah, there's no shortage of those kind of places. And for me, I'm not so much a history buff as I am. I love sitting out in front of a place where something occurred and just thinking X amount of years ago, Quincy Jones and Ray Charles were standing right here and they met each other. That's amazing. That's so cool to think that like there are these really amazing ghosts around us all the time. The ghosts of these moments that, they were there for a moment and then they were gone, or one night, that, Guns N' Roses hitchhiked all the way up the West Coast with just their guitars and somehow got to Seattle and somehow played a show here. And they went on to be the biggest band of all time. Stuff like that. That's really crazy to look at this, like a garage in the ID and think that Guns N' Roses played there,
That's
right.
the other thing.
Crazy to me.
Do you still have the links on your Instagram? Like, do you have a highlight story made at all with this? Because I know that you did.
I don't, but I should probably do that though. I should probably go through, and I'm not super tech savvy, but if maybe you can walk me through it at some point, because it might be nice.
It's easy enough to do. I'm happy to help you walk through it, because we do have people in the chat room like, where can I see this? I know that I don't think Ben's on Strava other than private Strava, right?
No, I don't do Strava.
Yeah, he doesn't do Strava, no. But I do have the GPX. He sent me the Gaia link of just the route, but knowing and seeing. So like, that was the other thing I was shocked by, was you see some of these storefronts and you're like, what? That's a garage. You're taking a picture of a garage that used to be a music venue that had Guns N' Roses play. Like, what? What happened to it? And so that's the fascinating thing too. Yeah, we'll see if we can't get a highlight reel made of that, so you can go back and look through some of these photos on Ben's Instagram, because it's fascinating stuff. And I will include, if it's cool with, I'll chat with Ben just regarding the GPX file, or maybe an image of it, because I know that he sent me a picture. Like, we can figure out if we want to show that. But it is awesome, man. Like, it was such a cool thing to see.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, we admire Ricky Gates a lot, and he did his run across the country, and he just put out his book, and it kind of reminded me of like a micro musical version of what Ricky was exploring. It's very cool. And Bridget in the chat room, speaking of Ricky, says, Ben, every single street, Seattle. Is that something that interests you?
Not at all. Not at all. No, I bought Ricky's book, and it's wonderful. If people have not read it, it's really the kind of book that we all need right now. And by we, I mean Americans who are just really sick of seeing people fighting with each other online about politics or and I am as guilty of as anybody else of kind of creating an us and them in this country, and to see the kind of the grace and humanity that he brings to his story of his journey was really, really powerful. And the photos are phenomenal, and it's just an unbelievable effort and really wonderful. But no, I have no interest. I mean, there are too many streets. Too many streets. I don't.
Too many streets.
I don't want too many streets. I've already done. The trails are open, my man. I'm not going.
There is something about like you are one of the only. I don't know. There's something special about having Ben Gibbard, one of the big rock stars of our city, who is also an ultra runner, someone who can go run this distance. Like there is something about this project that I know for you was just something you wanted to do, but for us was something really special and unique to have a musician who has a history in the Seattle visit these destinations, share some of that history that maybe we didn't know about, some of these bits of trivia.
It's like an intimate experience.
It's an intimate thing.
You opened up to us and everyone else that got to have a glimpse in. And
it's the same as your live streams. I don't want to sit here and like put Ben on a pedestal, but we will. But we will. It has a really sharp point at the end, so I'm sorry, Ben. But it is one of those things where like it's really cool for you to open your music room and share some of your talent with us on a weekly basis. But it's also really cool to see this musician push himself, run 46 miles of city streets, find these really cool destinations that mean something to you and to history, and now sharing those with us. I would have never have known that Quincy Jones and Ray Charles met at the Black Elks Club. I wouldn't have known that the garage, like what is now a car garage, used to be a rock venue that has so much cool history and stuff. I don't know. I appreciate
so much of that is being lost in this city right now, and
everything's being exactly.
And it's not to say that the garage that Guns N' Roses played in 1986 or whatever should be be a national monument, but for me, I just find I find it interesting when I often make pilgrimages to places that have significance to me because I'm a fan. Like I'm a fan. Before I'm a musician or a songwriter or whatever, I'm a fan. And a lot of these places produced things that are incredibly valuable to me and help define who I am.
Right.
But I also, when we were first touring and we went through San Francisco, I wanted to find this bar that Kerouac had written about, and he said, I'd go to the whale bar of all the wild bars, the one and only Third and Howard, and drink with the madmen, and if I get drunk, I get. And I went to Third and Howard, and it was a movie theater. It was like an AMC,
Wow.
So there was once a little bar there, and I remember I was so disappointed, but also I was also so naive to think that a bar he was writing about in in the 50s, there was going to be a dive bar in the techiest part of San Francisco that I could hop in there and stumble up to the bar and have a drink, at the time.
Right.
The way Kerouac did. So when there are the echoes of these places, and that there's still the general structure of them is still the same, relatively the same. That to me is to be, not so much treasured, but just to be experienced, to be able to go, because it's the experience I had standing in front of this AMC in San Francisco in 2000 was like, I was like, ugh. But when I went to this garage, I was like, cool. I could see it. I could, because it hadn't been knocked down. It hadn't become a movie theater. And it might be next time I run by it. Who knows?
Yeah, I love that because there's something about the bones of these structures where the bones still absorb some of that spirit, and they're still like, despite the fact it's a garage, and yeah, that's like, oh man, this isn't the rock venue anymore. It still kind of is. I think it would be different if it was a condo building or like some new 50-floor skyscraper. We saw it was Dina Martinez's Christmas show. Very, very funny show. Highly encourage Seattleites, or even she travels. But at the end of her Christmas show, she showed these images of Seattle, not even from that long ago, like from when I was an adult in Seattle, probably I'm not an adult now is what I'm saying.
No, you're baby.
Like from 2000 to 2006, just these landmarks that have even since then been turned over to condos. And they're just gone. A couple of them have been converted into other things, and those still exist in the city. Not many of them, but those still exist. And I still love seeing those and go like, oh, I remember when this used to be blank. The bones are still there. I can still see the structure. I hope they don't change it, like that sort of thing. We're approaching the end of our main show with the amazing Ben Gibbard, and we're going to continue the conversation in our after show with him for our Patreon supporters. But I do want to get to maybe like one more live question because we had a bunch chime in there. We'll try to get to as many in the after show, but go for it.
This question came earlier in the show from Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, Ben, with your online performances drawing regular returning audiences that have created a community of sorts, have you thought about what happens when the time comes to end those performances?
Yeah, I've committed to doing them through the end of this month, and I'm going to kind of reassess at that point. It's difficult to anything. Nobody wants anything to end. But I also feel like it might, I most likely will kind of. It seems to make sense to kind of coordinate it with the end of what might be the end of lockdown here in Washington State. That seems like, okay, that's a moment where that seems like and not to say that I will stop doing them completely, but that I might kind of dial it back a little bit more. But I haven't made a final decision about that. And I'm not saying that to kind of keep people on the edge of their seats, if people even care that much to be on the edge of their seats about something like this. But I also feel like they're all archived. People are able to go back and see them. And, I've played like almost everything I think I've ever written. So, at this point, I'm kind of starting to kind of repeat a lot of the same stuff. And I want to I might want to break it up a bit so I can just kind of come up with some creative ways to make the shows new and different than the way that I've been doing them for the last couple months.
We absolutely appreciate these shows, Ben. You've opened your home, and we've been able to bring you into ours. It's been pretty cool. So we appreciate everything that you've done for all the charities, for just, again, opening your talents to everybody and kind of helping us get through this with your beautiful talents. Can you remind people where they can find these live streams? We've had tons of questions of just like, where can I watch them? Where can I watch them? I know it's very easy, but just remind people where they can find them.
Yeah, so they're streaming at Death Cab For Cutie's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, I believe. Mm-hmm. Are those different things? Is Twitch different than Facebook? Okay. Yeah. I'm using this platform called StreamYard that kind of shoots everything out to 3 different platforms. So because I don't use a lot of this stuff, I mean, I watch stuff on YouTube, but I'm not on Facebook personally, and I don't use Amazon. So I'm in this place where it's like they can just kind of add new platforms. So my management will be like, hey, we're going to add Twitch this week. I'm like, cool. I don't know what that is. But it just type in Death Cab For Cutie into a search engine, live show, Ben live from home, and it'll pop up.
And there's also been a ton of really great articles written about Ben, his new single that he released during quarantine, and all of these live streams. So even if you just Google Ben Gibbard live stream or something like that, you'll find numerous links to that. A huge thank you to our wonderful guest tonight, Ben Gibbard, talking all about what he's been up to during quarantine, how he's getting through it. In addition to this Seattle Musical Landmarks 46 miler. Again, I'll try to figure out how to either post the GPX or just kind of show you an image of the route itself. But maybe I can even convince Ben to put all of his Instagram stories into a highlight. So all you have to do is just go to his Instagram and you can watch it. It's a really cool way to sort of relive that experience with Ben. Ben, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on the show today, man.
It is so nice to be on the show, and it's wonderful to see your guys' faces again.
Yours too. Yours too. We always could use more Ben's face in our faces. We are going to move into our after show with Ben. We're going to keep him only for just a couple more minutes, but we had some residual questions from the main show. If you would like to join our after show, it's very easy to do. You just go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month, which is a fraction of a cup of coffee. You get to join us for all of our after shows with all of our guests and go back and watch all the archives. For $3 or above, you get to join us every single day for our live streams that we've been doing through all of this. We're on episode 42, which is crazy.
Yes.
42 live episodes. So that's 42 hours of content.
Of us just sitting around drinking coffee.
One thing that we did just talk about, and I promised I would ask Ben.
Oh, is this going to be a main show ask?
No, it's going to be an after show
I was
ask.
waiting for after show.
But I'm going to tease it. So Ben, don't answer this. The question came up during our live shows yesterday, whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich.
Oh, yeah, I have feelings on this.
Ben has feelings on this. This is going to be good.
Get ready after show, folks.
After show, folks. We'll see you there. Ben's going to lay down the law.
Let's see if he yells like I did yesterday.
It got heated, and I am blown away by the results on some of these online polls that we've been seeing. But before we end this main show, we'd like to recognize a member of the community who's gone above and beyond, just done something pretty awesome. It's our GR Crew Member of the Week, where we get to just highlight one of our crew members out there doing the awesome. Kim, who is our GR Crew Member of the Week?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week is the one and only Liz McCutcheon. Liz was supposed to be joining me at Lake Sonoma this year to tackle the 50-miler, and of course that has been canceled. But Liz just finished the 4x4x48 challenge. She altered it a little to do 4K by 4x48. Mm-hmm. She killed it. Congratulations,
so 4K
Liz.
Every 4 hours for 48 hours. Stout effort. I mean, you're talking sleep deprivation, all sorts of physical, it's a challenge. So congratulations, Liz, on being our GR Crew Member of the Week. We want to recognize that effort. We had a lot of crew members take on some pretty cool stuff this last weekend too. So shout out to Liz. We're going to move straight into our after show. Keep Ben for just a little bit longer. He's got very little oxygen in that room, so we need to make sure that we don't use it all up. That's it, right?
That's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you tuning into Ginger Runner Live tonight. We'll see you next Monday for more. And be well. Be safe. Have fun. Get out there. Train as much as you want. Virtually race harder and party the hardest. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Goodbye.